Hello everyone, hello. Welcome to the Gamasutra Twitch channel. My name is Bryant Francis. I am a contributing editor at Gamasutra.com, and what you are seeing me playing right now is Ruiner. It is a very fast-paced game from these wonderful folks down in the lower left-hand corner. But before I introduce them, Alex, who is also down there, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning. My name is Alex Warrow, an editor at Gamasutra.com. And I've had a bit of a slow morning, but thankfully we are joined by some very special guests who are much more awake and alert than I am. Special guest, would you please do me the honor of telling everyone who you are and what you do?
Hello, I'm Tomkowicz, and I'm the narrative designer of the Ruiner game, and with Jakub here, we're two of the four co-founders of the Raycon Game Studio.
Hello, and I'm Jakub, and I'm the game director for Ruiner, and also taking care of the gameplay design and implementation. And there is a cat around that will be, jumping all around us, so there is also...
So tell me, what was the cat's role in the project?
So the cat's role was the morale booster. Basically, it's you can hug a cat, the cat try to eat you, or it can bite you, and then you're still alive, and that's a very helpful process to go through every day, like getting waked up by a cat jumping on your face. So that was essential, to the success.
Yeah, no, I think it's been really exciting in recent years to see the game industry really explode, and just to see a real preponderance of cats, of pets in general, be recognized as valued members of studio studio culture. Bryant, can you tell me a bit more about Ruiner, because I'm watching your game right now and I am just flummoxed by the style.
Ruiner, as far as I can tell, is a twin-stick shooter set in a cyberpunk future, which I think it's set in Bangkok, right?
It's Bangkok, actually.
It's Bangkok, yeah. It's
sorry,
a futuristic version of Bangkok, yeah.
But Bangkok is, it comes from the word Rengoku, which in Japanese means purgatory.
Yeah.
So then the name has a meaning as well, especially that you consider that one of the companies that actually there is one of the bad guys in the world is a company called Heaven.
Yes. That's what's going on. This flashy guy in front of me is the guy who's hijacked my mind and wants me to kill all these people. So he's going to kill me if I don't. So I need to work on that while... Oh, geez, 15 seconds. Ah, crap.
Yeah.
You got this, don't worry.
You need to kill to survive, but yeah... You actually got to the boss, the end boss of the prologue level, but he can kick your ass. But I think you'll be fine.
You can kick his ass too.
Yeah.
Just don't...
Try melee him. Try melee him between his shots. Like get close to him, try melee him, and try to jump away for a little bit and take out
kill
the other
guys to gain some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or something.
No pressure, Brian. You got this.
No pressure. Okay. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So we aren't just streaming gameplay here on Gamasutra. We also talk to developers about how they make their games. Alex, could you take over the question? Sorry, I need to focus.
Yeah, you got other things to worry about. You just beat that guy. So I think what is most interesting to me about this game and this entire project is the story of the studio and how you guys came to be. Ruiner, as far as I know, is your first project as a studio, right?
Yes. Exactly.
So
Mm-hmm.
Please.
Yeah, it started like 2 years and 8 months ago, and
the main production, because before that we were of course just meeting, after hours and looking for people who
you beat the boss, yeah.
Oh yeah, first try.
Nice job, Brian.
Yeah, so they all actually started about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
When you consider the concept phase, the talks, the meetings, sharing ideas.
So basically, we started in a group of 4 people. We were working on some other games like the Witcher series, Dying Light series, the Dead Island, stuff like that. So bigger, franchises, and like all of us have. From the 4 co-founders, we have pretty big experience in industry. So basically at some point we just really wanted to do something of our own, and we, me, Magdalena, Marek Refler, and Maciej Mach at some point just met, and we had pretty similar idea of starting our own company. And Ruiner itself, like from the very beginning, we really wanted to make like a super dynamic game. Like I tell this quite a lot. Like the very first idea was sort of like Cyberpunk Hotline Miami, right?
But before there was a hacker tower.
Yeah, of course we had some concepts. What was crystallized was something we wanted to do was like a brutal game, very fast paced, but also to tell some story. So not only combat, but also to show some futuristic, gritty world. And I think we sort of achieved that. Like after starting the project, the concept didn't really change that much throughout we of course had some prototypes we were throwing away. Like we pretty much changed the whole gameplay after 5 months of prototyping. At some point, like we started with a very basic top-down action, like without any dash mechanic, without the ability to move around very quickly. The game was very different back then, and at some point we really wanted to add some, the ability for some really cool movement.
Yeah, because this was at this point it was basically just moving and shooting, and it wasn't really exciting. We were not that happy with the first tech demo.
So we really wanted to ramp up the dynamic of the game. So we added the dash mechanic, and at that point we realized that we have to throw out all the environments we have made so far and the prototype, because all the areas were too small. They didn't fit the dash mechanic, so we had to rethink all of that like from scratch. So basically we had to restart after about 5 months of working on prototyping the game. That's really for us, it's how it should be. Like you need to iterate and change the game all the time, and just not be afraid to throw out quite a lot of stuff.
I think you're right. And something that I want to real quickly zero in on is that decision to change the game and trying to suss out what it lacked. I think most devs go through that on every project at some point. Maybe if they're lucky or unlucky multiple times. But we rarely talk about exactly how you suss that out, because it seems such a simple thing in hindsight. But looking back, if you can, tell me a bit about how you decided that the way to make the game more exciting, the way to make the game more of what you wanted it to be, was to add things like a dash mechanic. Why like a dash mechanic and not, say, procedurally generated levels?
I mean, for me, I usually, try to really be, I try to be inspired by many different sources, like, books, comics, anime, movies, and, of course, games. And for me, it's like, not really, I don't really try to just copy and, rip out something, but I try to play, like, a lot of different games. And sometimes I just really want to achieve this sort of flow or feeling I find in a different game. So when, for example, I play I don't know, Batman, Arkham Knight, right, and all the Rocksteady series, great games, by the way. It's like there are some mechanics and some dynamics in the combat. Of course, we have something completely different in the game, but the dynamic, and the ability to move, from one character to the other. Like they have this auto lock on, and the character is drawn into to the different NPCs all around you. So you are in this arena, and you have this flow in the combat, right? So we don't have that, but this was one of my inspirations to add this movement to the combat. So for me, it's pretty simple. I just play as many games as possible, and when I have this feeling of something really fresh, something really cool, I really want to also try to share it with the players while making the game. So the cool feeling, for example, for this movement.
Yeah, but this is a funny thing because it's not the first time that the idea of feeling comes up, and that we have the questions about inspirations behind some of the elements of the game. Some of them we wanted to recreate, like the feeling. But again, I'm talking about the feeling, right? So it's not like, oh, let's take this mechanics and this mechanics and this mechanics and make a gameplay out of it. Or let's take this world and this kind of NPCs. But this is about the feeling. So like when we played the Hotline Miami for the first time, there was this feeling of one-person party going on. Like you were playing the game, but actually the music was pumping, and you had the feeling that you're in trance, and this is a party, and this is a game, and it doesn't stop, and it helps you. It's not frustrating in the way. It's like this sense of presence in this context. So, yeah, what Kuba is saying, and I think that most of the team share, is that we want to bring the feeling, but the tools to bring the feeling might be different from the initial inspiration.
Yeah, I think what resonates with me about that is the idea that you're trying, in a sense, to make the player feel enmeshed in the moment, to feel very present, and not to be thinking too far ahead or too far behind. Just always be like looking at what's going on right now and what they need to be doing right now. I kind of wonder. Yeah.
So this is a game, and because many games have this fault of still making you feel that this is a game. I'm not gonna bring up titles, but. It often happens, okay, so this is a game, and I start enjoying this, and then this is a game. So this is so I have the feeling that the developers took a shortcut and not really a good one. So this is like the gamey things, right? This is a game, and we wanted to avoid that as much as possible to really bring you into this place of Runa.
There's some really amazing headgear in this game. I had a question in mind, but I just forgot about it because I saw a guy wearing an amazing hat, and let's just talk about that for a minute. So one of the most striking things about this game, stylistically, and on the front store page and everything, is the main character's helmet, which keeps flashing messages, sometimes for a reason, sometimes seemingly at random. It's a small detail, but I kind of want to crack it open a little bit. Where did the idea for that come from, and why did you implement it in that way?
Well, the first idea for the hero was already we really wanted to have this pretty terrifying guy who would be masked. So that was the very first idea, more of a Grim Reaper. I mean, to have sort of a Punisher guy, someone people would be really afraid of. So that was the first idea, but we didn't really stick to it. The mask itself was created when we met with Benedikt Schneider, our creative director, and we really, wanted to have this masked hero. But
we were thinking about facial mapping at that
time. Some sort of facial mapping, something displayed on your face, but not exactly a mask. So, and he actually drew the concept for the hero and proposed this LCD helmet with the whole display, and also there is the part of the character, the main hero being nameless and faceless, and he's a guy that just gets used through the whole game. He's either hacked by one person or another. So also, yeah, sorry. So the helmet also is used by the hackers to display whatever they want. So he's walking, I don't know,
advertising.
Yeah, advertising, something like that. I mean, So basically the idea we wanted to have the identity of the hero secret, and the LCD helmet itself is I don't know. It just fits. I cannot describe it. It's like the first time we saw it, we just knew this is it. This is what we want to have in the game.
Nice.
Yeah, it's hard to put a finger on it there, but there is something like just very striking about this notion of somebody cloaking themselves in a late stage capitalist society behind a bunch of advertisements and weird error messages and like strange things that everyone sees every day and just tunes out. But now this time it has a bat and it's coming for you.
Whoops.
And another awesome thing that's come out of this is that many people ask about it. But when we say like how the helmet came to be, they always like you. They share your idea. You share your ideas. They share their ideas about it, like what it means to them. And this is a really great thing that we managed to achieve, because if we created just a character with a face and something, well, that would be another person to maybe try to fit in their shoes and maybe try to understand who or what he is. But now it's like it enables the players to kind of project themselves into a character. So,
do you think that's different than other? I mean, there's a lot of like sometimes games and game developers are told that like a hero needs to be like not even faceless but bland to the point of being able to let players project that blank slate. But do you think there's a difference between what you did and say like, you know, sort of the generic like heroes of Call of Duty or some such? Sorry, Call of Duty developers, if you're sitting out there.
Well, this is, you know, the people in Call of Duty, they have faces, I think, right?
Yeah, but they are pretty generic. Like, yeah, that's true.
But there's a difference between a generic and a difference between, you know, this, because and the unique, but something that you can fill with your ideas, because you know, when nobody wants to be a generic NPC, right? Unless there is something really special about this person, this character. So I guess the idea for the helmet and for the character really resonates strongly with many people, and we've heard many really cool ideas from different players and people who saw it and just how like what they thought about it. So I don't think this is a good idea to create a generic person just for the sake of it, the person being generic. But when you even when the person is really generic, but you highlight certain aspects of the person that create the space for yourself to feel. Because I mean, so nobody wants to be generic, but in a way, everyone is generic, right? So even the most generic person definitely has something that you can highlight and make this generic person not a generic person. So when you give the tools to the players to make this generic or not really unusual person unusual, so I think this is what would work best.
Before we can, I have a question in a second for you all, but from the chat, David Jesus would like to know if a Mac release is on the way, since apparently that was in an earlier trailer. For our audience, for our normal audience, I'm curious if there are any limitations about developing for Mac OS that are affecting the process right now.
Yes, to be honest, we are not really sure about the Mac version at this point. Like, we really want to create a Mac version. There is some technical problem. We cannot really talk about it at the moment. This was the reason why the Linux and the Mac version were postponed. We didn't plan it at all, but at the very end of production, there was the problem that came up. So for the idea is to release a Linux version first and a Mac version after that. We don't have a date for it. We really want to do it, but we just cannot give any details. But we really want to work and to finish the Mac version and to have all the platforms released. But Mac will be after the Linux version.
Gotcha.
So that sort of like leads us naturally onto a broader question, which is sort of it seems like you two, at least maybe everyone on the team, left jobs at larger studios after making multiple games to start your own small operation, make your own game. What did you learn in the process, going from those bigger operations to a smaller indie outfit? And what would you, if you could go back in time and tell yourself something, what would you tell yourself now that everything is said and done?
I mean, as far as the experience go, I mean, the one thing I learned, like for sure, is that quality really counts. Like trying to finish and to polish stuff is usually profits like a lot. Like it. There are like two, schools of thought in game dev. Like, you can leave out some stuff and don't care about it, and people won't notice anyway, like small details. But I'm not really that person, and in my career, I learned that actually quite many people notice all very little details, like in both gameplay, graphics, and stuff like that. So my goal was always to. It's not really the best methods to work on a game, to try, iterate the stuff without end, because you cannot finish a game like that, right? Because you have to at some point tell yourself, okay, this is good enough, and we have to release it. But I learned that it's like brute force way of making a game, like trying to get a lot of not too many mechanics, not stuff like that, but to really work on the detail in all aspects, like both graphics, sound, characters, animations, intricate mechanics and little details and all of that. So this is something I was ingrained in my mind. There is a problem in becoming an indie developer, because we have those limitations, right? Small teams. So, for example, our team has grown from 4 to 18, and so that's not really such a small team anymore. And one of the reasons we have grown so much was because we really wanted to work on this detail. So we switched to indie, but really tried to in our work to go back to the
AAA mentality.
to the AAA mentality. So like there was this clash like all the time, and it often ended with longer work hours and stuff like that. We are not really proud about that, but I don't know. We just couldn't let it go.
So, what's a practical example of that? Like, just for people who are working on their own project and stuff. When was can you think of an example on Rune or even on an earlier project of a time that you had to make a sacrifice to sort of like make something the way you envisioned it in terms of polish or whatever, and did it pay off now at the end?
I mean, for sure we had to sacrifice quite a lot of different environments, and to have the detail we really wanted in the environments we have in the game. And on one hand, it's worked like a charm. Like we are really proud with what we achieved with the environments and the world we show in the game, both the city and the different areas you travel throughout the game. But it's also true that they are not super varied. That like not enough variations in the environments. So they are super detailed, but we just had to let go of some different teams and ideas to just be able to finish the game. So like our environment team, Karol Wieczorkiewicz and Jakub Mularski, they did like absolutely stellar job. But
yeah, there are two people who did the whole environment.
Yeah, pretty much. But on the other hand, we weren't able to make as many different environments as we wanted. So this is something we really had to let go at some point.
Mm. Yeah, so I think one of the things you can look back on now and say is a positive aspect of that is that it's a very holistic game. Like so far from what I've seen and from what I've seen in screenshots, like everything has a cohesive style and it all looks of a piece. And that style is, I think, part of what makes this game stand out, or may help it stand out in a marketplace like Steam, which is so crowded. I kind of want to know if we can just dig into like why cyberpunk? What is it about this art style, this aesthetic, this like political leaning in a way often that appeals to you after leaving studios where you worked on, zombie games and big fantasy RPGs and that kind of thing?
One thing is that we really wanted to do something different.
Well, not just different, but these are the things that were really interesting to all of us. And whenever we would just talk to new people, after we had the initial idea for the game, because I was thinking about the universe, so to me the most interesting stuff would be improvise on the emerging technologies and what they would become and what the society might become because of those technologies. And it so happens that many of these things are kind of cyberpunkish because of the technology, that it's so important, such an important part of the world. And then when we talked to Benedict and we shared the ideas and he saw our visual references and he threw them out and he said, no, I will show you how it will be done. And he brought in his visual universe, which is also very inspired by cyberpunk anime. But then again, it's the anime, like Ghost in the Shell, Akira, Patlabor, Cyber City. It's not the hardcore cyberpunk genre as it is defined as a separate genre. And to us, it's the cyberpunk as a genre is really old school and retro thing.
Yeah.
And cannot really relate to that, right? I mean, it's kind of amusing to a point when you read the stuff. Gibson himself says, that there are many things that are not present there just, because he's in the prophet, he just improvised on what he had on his hands. And he hadn't thought of mobile phones, for example. And so the cyberpunk universe is kind of, it's retro thing at this point. So to us, most important things were the things that inspired us when we were young, very young, and the things that we saw or heard or read, which really pushed the wow button in our minds and in our hearts. So the things that moved us the most, and again, this is the feeling that we had at that time, and that we want to bring back the feeling of the wow feeling in different aspects.
Yeah, no, it's funny, like the idea of cyberpunk being this this potential future of the past is so fascinating, because you have this idea that all these artists and other people put these ideas for what the future would be down, and it was like a little time capsule of like the 80s, and we just shot it off into space, and it landed somewhere and exploded, and now we have this whole planet that has just been built out of these dreams of the future from 30 years ago. It's been really amazing to see that genre flourish and to see what artists can do within it. I kind of want to talk about, you talk about throwing back to stuff you used to like and you remembered from being younger, really enjoying. The idea of a twin stick shooter is also it's been well aged. It's been around for a while. I kind of want to get a sense of what you think makes a good twin stick shooter, and maybe we can circle back to sort of touch on what you think helps keep players really enmeshed in the moment and sort of gives them that sense of flow.
Yeah, I mean,
we thought it would be easy.
Yeah, I mean, the first thought was that, top down, how hard can it be, right? Mm-hmm. Everything be easier. We have fixed camera and all of that. And actually, it was a huge challenge. Like the limitations, with the camera, I really wanted to show as much of the environments as possible. So that's why we have this pretty weird camera angle, and it's not just straight. It's slightly rotated a little bit.
Mhm.
So the one thing was, let's make an easy game, just to learn the engine and stuff like that. And
That's the dream.
Yeah, it evolved throughout the production. And what makes a good top-down action game? I mean, for me, the pinnacle of gameplay is the hotline. Is the hotline. Like especially the first part, like the dynamic, the mobility of the main character, and not only the brutality, but the one-shot mechanic. But like after we started to work on our game, we really wanted to change the course. We really didn't want to just copy Hotline, and we really wanted to add some gadgets and for the player the ability to upgrade his character to like sort of a different play styles with reflex booster, like slowing down time, kinetic barriers, walls, and stuff like that, different guns, and be able to customize yourself. So it didn't really fit with the one hit, one kill mechanics. So because the gadgets become useless if you can, defeat anyone with one shot, right? So it didn't really, blend together. So we went into a different direction, but we still achieved the really cool dynamic and this movement. Like we have this camera, right? You don't, you cannot see as much in third person or first person perspective. So it's really good idea to use the whole screen, like to give you the ability to move, behind the characters and around the characters and towards one character. So both, the multi-dash and the basic dash mechanics really support that. So yeah.
Hey,
So
I have a question.
Yes.
Magdalena, so what's interesting is this week we played Hob earlier, which is also a top-down game that came out this week, and I got to ask those guys what they thought about making games that we were primarily looking at the ground. Oh man, diving in there was not a good idea.
Yep.
My question is, like, I've played a couple top-down games with twin stick that actually have really interesting storytelling and really good narrative design. What makes this top-down perspective like interesting from a narrative design perspective view for you? Because this game mixes like kind of the fast gameplay and like some kind of storytelling with a point of view really well.
Yeah, so there are a couple of elements to it. The first is because we wanted to make a fast game from the start. We wanted to keep the story as tight and consistent as possible, so it doesn't overweight the fastness and the essence of gameplay. So initially, we just wanted to focus on the main story. You were going from one place to another. You were given bits and pieces of what is going on. That you were hacked. That your brother was kidnapped. That you have to find them, and on the way you encounter your enemies, etc. And in the end, you learn what actually is going on there. So we kind of stuck to it to a certain extent, because later on, throughout the development, we learned from the players that they want to know more about the world, they want to know more about the story, about the world, they want to be able to do things to maybe, kind of dive deeper into the universe. So we created this tiny side stories. We had a database where you can read about the world if you want to read, because I personally love reading books, but I love reading books and I hate reading in games. This is just something that I cannot understand, especially when you have a dynamic game. And then you get to the point where you have that amount of dialogue and just now read through it. And this is just I hate it personally. So we
Yep.
have the dialogues are no longer the 3 lines, and usually they're shorter. And if you want to learn more, go to the database. You have it there. So that's one, and also because Benedict is a comic book artist, so we wanted to like bring back the feeling that you have, and also like when you read comic books, there is a lot of comic books are really, usually very thin books, but it still takes a lot of time to read them because of all the visuals. So this is similar with Runner. There's not much text, but the world is telling the story, and the gameplay is telling the story, and we wanted to to have it consistent. And another thing is that there's the character of the hacker girl, and she's your companion, and she's watching you. So this particular camera view is a kind of like industrial camera that you see that are mounted in shops, on the streets. And so for some time we even wanted to have this tiny drone that would be following you, but then it turned out pretty difficult technically. So this is one of the things that we gave up, and it wouldn't really change that much in the game. But still some people get it. Some people ask about the camera and if this is, the element of her being with you. And so
you're being watched and you're just this little guy on the ground. Like you can never see, the sky. You're just
so who is the person that watches the character? Are you the character, or are you the person who watches the character? Like, mystery.
That's good. I like that. Is there anything? I mean, you just sort of talked about how the camera affects that. Oh, good. I was worried that was going to blow me up. I was wondering if when you're making this in the game, is there anything about making interesting things to be viewed from top down? Like how do you make how do you make it so that the player isn't just looking at the ground?
I mean, there is a lot of work into that. Like the one thing is exactly what you say. Like we want to, on one hand, want to have a lot of detail, in the world, but the combat is super dynamic, and you need pretty big areas, pretty big open areas to move around. So, like every time you start the combat, the detail can be only on the edges. So we really we really had to work a lot on, just positioning all the detail and the stuff in the, smaller corridors between the arenas, so you don't really have to, go around the arena, to the edge of each of them to see the detail around you. So this is actually a pretty big challenge. Like on one hand, you need this open space, but on the other hand, you need to put the detail somewhere. So we have to have this, smaller passages which allow you to just show, some graffiti walls, some details, some, backgrounds, and for example, when you are in a multi-layered area, you can see the levels, down below, stuff like that. So it's like we really need those special focus points, I could say. Like you don't need to press a button to have your camera look at something, but to make sure that player sees anything more than just the ground and the concrete on the ground, like on the bigger arenas, right? So those passages in some places contain quite a lot of detail. Yeah,
I need to point out something here really quick. I was checking to see the bounties I'd killed, and Don Vias is described as a young, self-taught game designer with millions of views on YT. He soon grew impatient with the industry. Too many requests and criticisms from whiny and entitled viewers eventually caused him to go postal. He is now wanted for countless murders of foreigner fans. Is that any kind of... Is there anything we should know about that?
Yeah, that's a true story.
Yeah, that's a true story. I remember, actually.
Yeah.
It's Michael Donvius.
It's a dark tale.
He exists and he's still alive.
He's a celebrity in the Team Fortress, community. Like, yeah.
Huh. I gotta look him up.
He created some videos in the Source Filmmaker with like millions of views, like 4 million views, something like that. So he's a celebrity, gone postal.
Yeah, no doubt. before we move on, we should duck into the chat real quick. Somebody wants to know. Almighty T just wants to check in and say, do you have plans to release DLC down the road or significant content updates?
Yes. We are already working, first of all, on the first patch. We'll be adding the key binding, of course, which was not in the basic game. So we just, I don't know. I cannot give a good reason why we don't have it. So we'll have it pretty soon, and also some bug fixes. We have quite a long list of fixes, and we'll be working to release and patch next week. Yeah. And we are working on 2 DLCs, free, of course. There will be some additional game modes. There will be like speedrun mode, time attack mode. There will be more something bigger like an arena, like the creep arena with different waves and challenges, and we'll be able to unlock some really cool stuff there, like new weapons, new jackets for the main hero, and hopefully some new skills in the game. We'll be working to have some online leaderboards for those new game modes. And also we are working on a finisher system. So throughout the game, we'll be adding the ability to take down weakened enemies with really cool finishing animations to make the game even more brutal and gory. Other than that, we'll be working on adding some new weapons and some cool stuff on the way. So yeah, we are working on some additions and some new gameplay modes that players asked us quite a lot.
So that leads me to actually circle back. A couple minutes ago, we were talking about why you picked this concept, and you mentioned that it was because it seemed easy at the time. Top-down shooter, learn the engine, get everything set up. It sounded like it didn't pan out to be as easy as you expected. Let's talk about what were some challenges you faced along the way that maybe other developers might be able to avoid if they know about it.
Oh wow!
Nothing is ever as easy as you think it will.
Yeah, I mean the first basic mistake is you make a first pitch and first plans for the game and first timeline for production, and you create some buffers and you try to make sure that there is some additional time. Pretty obvious stuff, but at the end, it's usually when you have, for example, you think that your game will take, 18 months to complete. You really should count that it will take 36 months. Everyone says that, you have a buffer and make the buffer, double the buffer to make sure that you have spare time and you work out the budget and stuff like that. But actually you should triple or quadruple the buffer. This is the first thing, especially when you are starting a new project while creating a company and you are actually still looking for people, and you probably have to grow your team on the way, and it will take time and people have to adjust, and some people might not know the engine, and in our case everyone was learning Unreal Engine from scratch when they joined us. So this is one thing, when you create any sort of plans for the production, make sure that your buffer is much bigger than you would think at first. Really, there is no way. Most games sleep at least 6 or 9 months in production, or even a year, and yours won't be different. There is, it's a creative process. You have, and no one has, and we didn't have, an idea of what we are, getting into. Right?
Yeah, but
we worked on the games for 12 years before that, so we had some knowledge, but still.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, actually. Even when you know that, and even when you hear other people tell you that, you still think know what you're doing, and that they don't know because this is your project and But even then, you should catch yourself on that no, you don't know what you're doing because you're not there anymore. It's like discovering in land or building a highway through a jungle, and you don't know if there's gonna be some rocks on the way or a swamp
you have no
or
idea exactly.
a big hole in the ground. You have no idea because you weren't there. You haven't been there, and it's like there will be many adventures ahead, and you will have to adjust and react, and you cannot foresee that. So you have to even if you first know that you have to double or triple the budget, and know that you will be resistant to that idea, and that you have to fight through your resistance to that idea.
Yeah. So at the first, you'll think I have a plan. They don't know anything. They might something. So okay, I'll adjust it a bit. No, actually, everyone says the same thing. And when you started, you have this different perspective, and you never believe that.
So
but it's true.
So maybe it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just inevitable. You need to have first the experience to realize that this is true.
Yeah, maybe it's impossible to convince anyone, but just by saying that. But this is our thing we really want to share with any other developers that are just starting.
Do you have a practical example? I mean, we already talked about how early on, I say, you had to scrap 5 months of work because you decided it needed to be a little more exciting. But was there any other examples you can think of something you thought would be something you planned that did not go at all the way you planned it?
Sorry.
I mean, everything. This is you unless you are just making, a copy paste of some game. You could say that our game is not super innovative. We don't really have some new, cool ideas, but we like to think that our game is innovative in a way by combining some known mechanics from different games in a pretty fresh way. Mm-hmm. So we and we still working on and having some references, had to experiment and to iterate a lot, and just to try out and to throw out quite a lot of stuff. So this is, I mean, from my perspective, it's nothing worked as it was supposed to work at the first time. Everything was a surprise. Every single point of from marketing and creating marketing assets to I mean, can we talk about the music in the first trailer?
Yeah, sure.
Surprise? No, because this was, I mean, there is
I think we can. I think we can talk about it.
Yeah, for example, things you cannot plan. The first trailer for the game was created, by us, edited, and we were really proud with that, and we actually signed license for the music for the trailer, for the first trailer, with a guy, a name I won't mention, and we found the music on the internet, most of the music for our game. Mm-hmm. And we found the person, we found the music. I don't remember where exactly. Yeah, and we signed agreement, and we all even worked through a licensing company, which was taking care of all of that. And this person signed the deal and licensed the track, and we released the trailer. And a couple of hours after releasing the trailer, we learned that the music was actually a remix of someone's music.
Oh.
It was 50% slower or something like
that.
Yeah,
and we weren't able to find, to check all the music on the internet to make sure that it's not a remix. We trusted the person, we signed an agreement with, a license for the music, So, everything was set up.
Yeah.
And found out that it was actually stolen music, and we had to take down the trailer. The trailer patched with
Some
with
YouTube
generic
music.
YouTube music, and the trailer is still, on the internet with the generic music patched on, and with the original music cut out, and
We couldn't see that.
we couldn't have
Yeah.
foreseen. We lost, a lot of views on the trailer. We had to, reset the promotion pretty much, and this was our first experience with the promotion of the game. We were at that time on PAX East in Boston,
Mhm.
and our first experience was that, our trailer, which we worked really hard on, had stolen music, and we had to take it down. And it was like, oh my god! So that's the beginning, of a great adventure.
That's
And
insane.
you cannot plan for it, you sign a license with a person, right? Legally binding stuff. And this is, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
Yeah, no, we got there. That was good. That was interesting. Something else is interesting. I want to share real quick, just on the stream. Someone is in chat under the name of Till Taylor, just agreeing with you and saying that they are also a concept artist, and they are working also on a DLC, and they are very thankful that they recently got another 3 weeks to polish it. Otherwise, it would be really rushed and a bad scene. They say they feel very bad for the story about the trailer music, and they had something similar going on with a font choice. So they recommend other game developers be very careful when you're
super. The worst thing is that sometimes you just cannot check everything. You're unable to, like, for example, check all the fonts on the internet or all the internet to make sure that it's so. I don't know. You just have to be somehow. You cannot plan for it, but somehow, if you can have a backup plan,
yeah,
like
but also,
every time you can.
yeah, but also these things happen, and just in the whole chaotic process, because also some of the beginning game developers, sometimes they just feel. We also felt horrified, with some things that we couldn't. They were going on around us. The projects just took a life of its own and started just growing. And we started very few, and then we expanded really fast, and we were just lost in the whole process. But some game developers just create their game just by themselves. Like, there's one person, and they have nobody to talk to all day. So this can be pretty hard burden. So their deadlines just don't stick, and they are late with stuff. So these things happen. This is part of the process. And don't feel bad because everyone is late. Even The Witcher 3 was late. Like, even the greatest, the biggest, the most established
and actually
late, so.
Most of them are much better thanks to that. So I mean maybe that's the best thing to say, that some bad things will happen and you cannot be prepared for them, but if just, I don't know, somehow try not to worry. Like, it happens to
just keep
everyone.
doing what you're doing.
Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. It will happen, and it happens to, like, everyone. I'm pretty sure every dev team has some horror story or two like that. But it's just keep in mind that it happens, and whatever, just carry on.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing to go out on. Brian, we got to wrap this up. First of all, how you doing in there?
Good, just chilling in the city, just seeing what other side questy, like, narrative stuff I can pull out, and walking into potentially not safe for work clubs. Turns out. So, the game's cool. I super dig, like, the ability to just kind of low key hang out in the city like this, hunt down these cats. I've been hunting down cats like the one you see on that roof up there. So I'll figure out how to get that one later. And then on the other hand, I've been, murdering a lot of people. So, video games, cats, and murder.
Exactly.
I am out of questions myself, so I might as well wrap things up. You have all been watching the Gamasutra Twitch channel. We super appreciate everyone coming by today. If you enjoyed what you saw here, we'd love it if you were to give our channel a follow. Just scroll down and click that follow button. That way we can let you know when we're doing more great interviews with game developers and designers, so you can learn more about the art and business of making games. Jakub and Magdalena, if they have any questions for you, where can they send you questions about, like, surviving game development?
Try hello@raycongames.com, and it's
And also our social media.
and
channels.
also we are pretty responsive on our Twitter, Ruiner Game,
Facebook,
and Facebook also
Tumblr,
Ruiner Game.
Steam page.
Yeah, but if you want to, get in
touch
contact, in touch
personally,
personally, try hello@raycongames.com, and you can reach us there. We check them out pretty often.
Awesome. I have been Brian Francis, contributing editor at Gamasutra.com. Alex, who have you been?
That's such a good question. I guess this week, I've been Gamasutra editor Alex Waro. We'll see about next week. Thank you both for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and we hope the game launch goes quite well.
And before I go, Till Taylor just wants to let you both know that they love the visuals and the whole art style for this game. Bye, everyone.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.